Lauren Davis wiped the sweat from her forehead as she stood in front of the old garage on Maple Street. The building looked tired and forgotten, paint peeled from its walls like old skin. The windows were so dirty you could not see through them. But Lauren saw something different. She saw hope. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cracked pavement where she stood clutching the keys that would change her life forever. This moment had been 3 years in the making, and now it was finally here. Her heart pounded with excitement and fear all mixed together like oil and water in an old engine. "You sure about this girl?" asked Mr. Peterson, the real estate man. He adjusted his glasses and looked worried. "This place has been empty for 20 years. Nobody wants it." Mr. Peterson had been selling buildings for 30 years, and he had never seen anyone so young take on such a big project. The garage needed thousands of dollars in repairs. The roof leaked when it rained. The electrical system was older than Lauren herself. But something in the young woman's eyes told him she was not going to change her mind. She had that look of someone who had made up their mind completely. Lauren smiled and touched the keys in her pocket. At 22 years old, she had saved every penny for 3 years to buy this place. "I am sure, sir. This is my dream." Her voice was steady and strong, even though inside she felt like a little girl playing dress-up in grown-up clothes. She had dreamed of this moment so many times. She had walked past this garage hundreds of times imagining what it would look like with fresh paint and working lights and cars lined up waiting to be fixed. Now that dream was about to become real, and it scared her as much as it excited her. Lauren had grown up in foster care, and her story was not an easy one to tell. She moved from house to house her whole life, never staying anywhere long enough to call it home. Some families were kind but busy with their own children. Others were mean and made her feel like a burden they had to carry. The only constant in her life was her love for fixing things. When she was 8 years old, she found a broken bicycle in a dumpster behind the apartment building where she lived with the Johnson family. The bike was rusty and missing parts, but Lauren saw potential where others saw trash. She spent weeks figuring out how to make it work again. She traded chores for tools and begged for spare parts at the local bike shop. That bicycle became her best friend and her first real accomplishment. When she finally got it running, she felt like she could fix anything in the world. "Cars talk to me," Lauren often told people, and she really meant it. "They tell me what is wrong and help them feel better." It sounded silly when she said it out loud, but it was true. When she put her hands on an engine, she could feel what was wrong. She could hear the difference between a healthy engine and one that was struggling. Other mechanics would run expensive tests and still not find the problem. Lauren could diagnose most issues just by listening and feeling. It was a gift that made her special, but also made her feel different from everyone else. After high school, Lauren worked 3 jobs to save money for her dream. She cleaned offices at night when the building was empty and quiet. The work was lonely, but it gave her time to think and plan. She served food at a diner in the morning where truckers and early workers came for coffee and eggs. The customers were mostly nice, and some of them became like family to her. She worked at a small auto shop in the afternoon where the owner, Mrs. Garcia, taught her everything about engines and transmissions. Mrs. Garcia was a tough woman who had run the shop for 20 years after her husband died. She saw something special in Lauren right away. "You have a gift, Mia," Mrs. Garcia would say in her thick accent. "Do not waste it." Too many people waste their gifts because they are afraid to use them. Lauren saved every dollar she earned and lived like a monk. She ate peanut butter sandwiches for lunch every day for 3 years. She walked to work instead of taking the bus, even when it was raining or snowing. She bought clothes from thrift stores and learned to fix everything herself instead of buying new things. Other people her age went to parties and bought nice things and lived like tomorrow would never come. Lauren had only one goal burning in her heart like a flame that never went out. She wanted to own her own garage where she could fix cars, and be her own boss, and never have to move again. When the old garage on Maple Street went up for sale, Lauren knew it was meant for her. The price was low because the building needed so much work that most people ran away when they saw it. The seller had dropped the price 3 times trying to find someone brave enough to take it on. But Lauren was not afraid of hard work. Hard work was all she had ever known. She saw past the broken windows and rusty tools to the potential underneath. She could picture herself working there every day, surrounded by the smell of motor oil and the sound of engines coming back to life. Mr. Peterson handed her the keys with a worried expression on his face. "Good luck, young lady. You are going to need it." He drove away, shaking his head and muttering about young people who did not know what they were getting into. But Lauren did not care what Mr. Peterson thought. She had the keys to her future in her hand, and nothing else mattered. Lauren walked to the front door like she was walking to her wedding. Her hands shook as she put the key in the lock. The key turned with a loud click that echoed in the quiet street. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. Dust particles danced in the sunlight that came through the dirty windows like tiny spirits welcoming her home. The smell of old motor oil filled the air, and Lauren breathed deeply. This was home. For the first time in her life, she was standing in a place that belonged to her and only her. The main garage area was bigger than she expected and filled with possibilities. There were 2 car lifts that looked like they had not been used in years, but were still solid and strong. Old tools hung on the walls, covered in rust and dirt, but Lauren could see they were good quality tools that just needed some love and attention. She walked around slowly, taking everything in and making mental notes about what needed to be fixed first. She could picture cars lined up waiting to be repaired. She could see herself working under the hood of a beautiful classic car with her hands covered in grease and a smile on her face. This was where she belonged, and she knew it in her bones. "I can make this work," she said out loud, and her voice echoed in the empty space, like a promise she was making to herself and to the building itself. She had never owned anything before. She had lived her whole life using other people's things, and sleeping in other people's beds and eating at other people's tables. But this was different. This was hers, and she was going to make it beautiful. Lauren spent the next 2 weeks cleaning like her life depended on it. She scrubbed floors until her knees hurt and her back ached. She wiped down every tool and piece of equipment with care and attention. She washed windows until they sparkled like diamonds and let in beautiful light that had been hidden for years. She painted walls and fixed small problems and made the garage slowly come back to life. Every day it looked a little better, and every day she felt more like she was really home. One day while cleaning the back office, Lauren noticed something strange that made her heart skip a beat. Behind an old filing cabinet, there was a small door she had not seen before. The door was painted the same color as the wall and was almost invisible unless you looked at it just right. Lauren had to look twice to see it, and even then she thought her eyes might be playing tricks on her. But when she moved closer, she could see the outline clearly and feel cool air coming from behind it. She moved the heavy cabinet with great effort that left her sweating and breathing hard. The door had no handle, just a small keyhole that looked like it had not been used in many years. Lauren looked through her keys, but none of them fit the tiny lock. She went to the hardware store and bought a special tool to pick locks. The man at the store gave her a strange look, but sold her what she needed without asking questions. It took Lauren an hour to get the door open, and her hands were shaking by the time she heard the click. When she finally did open it, her heart stopped beating for what felt like forever. Behind the door was a steep staircase going down into darkness that seemed to go on forever. The steps were wooden and old, but looked solid enough to hold her weight. Lauren got her flashlight and slowly walked down the stairs. Each step creaked under her feet, like the building was talking to her and telling her secrets that had been hidden for years. At the bottom of the stairs, Lauren found another door, and this one was not locked. She opened it and gasped so loud that it echoed in the darkness. The room was huge, much bigger than the garage above, and it stretched out further than her flashlight could reach, and it was filled with cars. Not just any cars, but the most beautiful classic cars Lauren had ever seen, even in magazines or movies. They sat in neat rows like sleeping giants, waiting for someone to wake them up. A 1967 Shelby Cobra sat in the center of the room like the king of all the other cars. Its blue paint gleamed even in the dim light from her flashlight, and Lauren could see that it was in perfect condition. Next to it was a 1955 Mercedes 300 SL with gull-wing doors that opened like the wings of a silver bird. There was a 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda that looked like it could fly down the highway at 100 miles an hour. There was a 1963 Ferrari 250 GTO that was so beautiful it took Lauren's breath away. Car after car after car, each one more incredible than the last. Lauren counted 37 cars in total, and each one looked like it belonged in a museum or a dream. They were arranged perfectly with just enough space between them to walk around and admire every detail. Lauren walked between them in a daze, feeling like she had stepped into another world where everything was perfect and beautiful. She reached out and touched the Cobra, and the metal was cold but smooth as silk. Her reflection looked back at her from the perfect paint, and she hardly recognized herself. She looked like someone who had discovered treasure, and that was exactly what she had done. "This cannot be real," Lauren whispered, but even as she said it, she knew it was real, because she could smell the leather seats and see the dust on the floor and feel the cool air on her skin. This was not a dream, even though it felt like one. This was real, and it was hers because she owned the building and everything in it. She spent the rest of that day and most of the night exploring the hidden garage, like an explorer discovering a new continent. There were tools everywhere, and not just regular tools, but special ones that cost thousands of dollars each. There were boxes of rare car parts that looked like they had never been opened. There were books about classic cars dating back 50 years with pages yellow from age. Someone had spent a lifetime collecting all of this and had hidden it away, like pirates hiding treasure. Lauren found a desk in the corner covered with papers and photographs. Inside the drawer was a letter addressed to the new owner in handwriting that looked like it belonged to someone old and wise. Lauren opened it with shaking hands that could barely hold the paper steady. Her heart was beating so fast, she thought it might jump right out of her chest. "My name is Walter Morrison," the letter began in neat, careful handwriting. "If you are reading this, then I am gone, and someone new owns my garage. I spent 40 years collecting these cars, and each one has a story to tell. Each one was saved from being destroyed or forgotten. I loved every single one of them like they were my children. I could not take them with me when I got sick, so I hid them, hoping someone would find them who would love them as much as I did." The letter went on to explain that Walter had been forced to close his garage in 2004 when he got cancer and could not work anymore. He could not afford to keep paying taxes on the cars, so he built this secret room and hid them away. He hoped someday the right person would buy the garage and discover his collection. He had spent his last years alone with no family and no friends except for his cars. When he died, he left everything to whoever was brave enough to buy his broken-down garage. "If you love cars as much as I did, please take care of them," the letter continued. "If you do not love cars, please sell them to someone who does. Do not let them rot away in darkness. They deserve to be driven and loved and admired. They deserve to feel the sun on their paint and the wind in their engines. That is what I always wanted for them, but I ran out of time." Lauren sat down hard in an old chair that creaked under her weight. She could not believe what was happening to her. Things like this did not happen to people like her. People who grew up in foster care and worked 3 jobs and ate peanut butter sandwiches did not find rooms full of priceless cars. But here she was holding a letter from a dead man who had left her more money than she could count. These cars were worth millions of dollars. The Ferrari alone was probably worth $20 million. Lauren had heard of them selling at auctions for crazy amounts of money that regular people could never imagine having. She ran upstairs on shaking legs and called Mrs. Garcia with hands that could barely dial the number. "You found what, Mrs.?" Garcia shouted into the phone so loud that Lauren had to hold it away from her ear. 37 classic cars hidden in a secret garage under the building. Lauren repeated slowly because she could hardly believe the words coming out of her own mouth. "Mrs. Garcia, what should I do? I do not know anything about selling cars, or what they are worth, or how to handle something this big." "Mia, you need to call an expert," Mrs. Garcia said after she stopped shouting. "Someone who knows about classic cars and their value. Do not tell anyone else about this until you know exactly what you have. There are people who would try to cheat you or steal from you if they knew. Be very careful who you trust." Lauren called a classic car appraiser named David Chun, who she found on the internet. He specialized in rare and vintage automobiles and had written books about car collecting. When Lauren told him what she found, he was quiet for so long that she thought the phone had gone dead. Finally, he spoke in a voice that was barely above a whisper. "I will be there tomorrow morning first thing. Do not touch anything. Do not move anything. Do not tell anyone else about this. If what you are telling me is true, then you have found something that most people only dream about." That night, Lauren could not sleep even though she was more tired than she had ever been in her life. She kept going downstairs to make sure the cars were still there and that she had not dreamed the whole thing. Every time she turned on her flashlight there, they were beautiful and real and waiting for her. She sat in the darkness for hours just looking at them and trying to understand that her whole life had changed in one single day. Yesterday she was a poor girl with a broken-down garage. Today she was possibly one of the richest people in the city. David Chun arrived early the next morning before the sun was fully up. He was a small man with gray hair and thick glasses who carried several large cameras and a briefcase full of official-looking papers. He looked like someone who knew important things and had seen valuable cars before. But when Lauren led him down to the hidden garage, his mouth fell open like a door with broken hinges. He stood frozen for several minutes, just staring at the cars with eyes that were wide with shock and amazement. "This is impossible," he finally said in a voice that shook with emotion. "Do you have any idea what you have here? Do you understand that you are looking at one of the most valuable private car collections in the entire world?" He walked closer to the Ferrari and knelt down beside it like he was praying to a god. He examined every inch without touching it, because he knew that even touching it wrong could damage something worth millions of dollars. Then he moved to the Shelby Cobra, and his hands shook as he took pictures from every possible angle. "Young lady," David said after 2 hours of examining cars and taking notes and checking serial numbers, "you have just discovered automotive history. This Ferrari 250 GTO is one of only 36 ever made in the entire world. At auction it could sell for $40 million. Maybe $50 million if the right collectors are bidding against each other. I have only seen 3 of these in my entire career, and never one in this condition." Lauren sat down hard on an old crate that was sitting nearby. Her legs felt like they were made of water and would not hold her up anymore. $40 million, she repeated, because saying it out loud might make it feel real. But it still felt like something that was happening to someone else in a movie she was watching. "That is just one car," David continued, and his voice was getting more excited with every word. "The Shelby Cobra is worth $8 million. The Mercedes is worth $5 million. That Hemi Cuda over there is worth $3 million. I need to examine every single car carefully, but I estimate this entire collection is worth between $90 and $100 million. Maybe more depending on the condition and the paperwork." Lauren started to cry, and the tears came so fast she could not stop them. They were not sad tears, but tears of shock and joy and fear, all mixed together like ingredients in a recipe she had never made before. Her whole life had changed in one moment, and she did not know how to handle feelings this big. She had gone from having nothing to having everything, and it was too much to understand all at once. She felt like she was drowning in good luck that was too good to be real. "What do I do now?" she asked through her tears while wiping her face with hands that were still shaking. "I do not know anything about being rich or owning things this valuable. What if someone tries to steal them? What if I make a mistake and lose everything? What if this is all just a dream and I wake up tomorrow back in my old life?" David sat down beside her on another crate, and his voice became gentle and kind. "That depends on what you want to do with your life now. You could sell everything and never work again. You could buy a mansion and travel the world and live like a queen for the rest of your days. You could keep some cars and sell others. Or you could restore them and create a museum where people could come see them. The choice is completely yours, and whatever you decide will be the right choice because they are your cars now." Lauren wiped her eyes and looked around at the sleeping giants that surrounded her. She thought about Walter Morrison and his letter and all the love he had put into collecting these cars. She thought about all the years he spent saving them from being destroyed. She thought about her dream of owning a garage and fixing cars and making broken things whole again. Suddenly she knew exactly what she wanted to do, and the answer surprised even her. "I want to restore them," Lauren said, and her voice was stronger than it had been all day. "All of them. I want to bring them back to life the way Walter would have wanted. I want to make them run and drive and feel the sun on their paint again. I do not want to just sell them and walk away. I want to honor what Walter did and continue his work." David smiled, and his eyes lit up with respect and admiration. "That will take years and cost millions of dollars. Are you sure that is what you want to do? It would be much easier to sell them and live off the money." But even as he said it, Lauren could tell that he hoped she would stick with her decision, because he understood what the cars meant and why they deserved to be restored. Lauren looked around at the cars one more time and felt something click into place in her heart like an engine part, finding exactly where it belonged. "I am sure. These cars have been sleeping for too long. They need someone who loves them to wake them up. But I need help because I cannot do this alone. I need people who know more than I do about restoration and business and dealing with this much money." "I know people who can help," David said, and his voice was full of excitement. "Master restorers who would give anything to work on cars like these. Business managers who can help you handle the money and the legal issues. Insurance experts who can protect your investment. But first we need to make sure everything is legal. We need to find out exactly how Walter got these cars, and make sure you truly own them with no questions or problems." The next few weeks were like riding a roller coaster that never stopped going up and down. Lawyers got involved asking questions about ownership and taxes and inheritance laws. Insurance companies got involved wanting to know exactly what was being insured and how much it was worth. The government got involved making sure the cars were not stolen and that all the proper paperwork existed. Lauren learned more about legal issues and business in those few weeks than she had learned in her whole life before. Lauren also learned that Walter Morrison had been even more careful than anyone imagined. He had legally bought every single car with proper titles and bills of sale. He had kept perfect records of everything, including where each car came from and how much he paid for it. He had registered everything properly and paid all his taxes until the day he got sick. Most importantly, he had no family at all and had left everything legally to whoever bought his garage. That meant Lauren legally owned the most valuable car collection in private hands, and no one could take it away from her. The story made national news when someone leaked it to a reporter. Newspapers and television stations came from everywhere wanting to interview the young mechanic who found treasure in an old garage. Lauren was overwhelmed by all the attention and did not like having cameras pointed at her and strangers, asking personal questions about her life. "I just want to fix cars," she told one reporter who kept pushing for more details. "Now I have the best cars in the world to fix, and I want to get started." Lauren decided to keep 20 of the cars and sell 17 others. The 17 she sold at auction brought in $68 million, which was more money than she had ever imagined existing in the world. She used $30 million to restore the remaining 20 cars to perfect condition. She used $20 million to turn the garage into the most advanced restoration shop in the country with the best equipment money could buy. She kept $18 million for herself, which was enough money to last several lifetimes if she was careful with it. Lauren hired 12 of the best mechanics and restorers in the world and paid them more than they had ever made before. Mrs. Garcia became her business partner and advisor because Lauren trusted her more than anyone else in the world. The garage became known as Morrison Classics in honor of Walter and his amazing collection. Car lovers from around the world made pilgrimages to see the cars and meet the young woman who had discovered them. The first car they restored was the 1967 Shelby Cobra because it had been sitting in the center of the room like it was waiting to be chosen first. Lauren did most of the work herself with help from master mechanics who taught her advanced techniques. When they fired up the engine for the first time, Lauren started crying again because the sound was like music from heaven. The engine roared to life with a deep throaty sound that made her heart sing with joy. She could almost hear Walter Morrison laughing with happiness somewhere in the distance. Lauren kept her promise to Walter and did not let the cars rot away in darkness. She brought them back to better than new condition with love and attention and the best parts money could buy. Each restoration took months of careful work, but when they were finished, the cars looked like they had just rolled off the factory floor 50 years ago. Car magazines wrote articles about the restorations, and experts came from museums to study the work that was being done. But the most important thing Lauren did with her new wealth was start a program for kids in foster care just like she had been. She brought them to the garage and taught them about cars, and showed them that machines could be fixed just like broken hearts could be healed. She showed them that no matter where you came from or how little you had, you could achieve your dreams if you worked hard enough and never gave up hope. Cars do not care if you are rich or poor, Lauren told the kids who came to visit every week. They do not care what color you are or where you grew up, or whether your parents wanted you or not. They only care if you treat them with respect and love and give them the attention they need to run properly. The kids listened with wide eyes because they understood that Lauren was talking about more than just cars. One of the kids was an 8-year-old boy named Marcus who reminded Lauren of herself at that age. He had been in foster care his whole short life, moving from house to house like a package that nobody wanted to keep. He was angry and sad and did not trust adults because too many adults had let him down. But when Marcus saw the cars, his eyes lit up like Christmas morning and Easter Sunday all rolled into one. He asked Lauren a million questions about how everything worked and wanted to touch every surface and examine every detail. "Would you like to help me work on a car?" Lauren asked Marcus one day when he seemed especially interested in a 1969 Camaro they were restoring. Marcus nodded so hard his head almost fell off his shoulders. Lauren gave Marcus small jobs at first, like cleaning parts and organizing tools and sweeping the floor. But Marcus was a natural just like Lauren had been, and his small hands were perfect for reaching into tight spaces where adult hands could not fit. "Miss Lauren," Marcus said one day while they worked on the Camaro engine together, "do you think someone like me could own a garage someday? Do you think someone like me could have nice things and a real home and people who love them?" His voice was so quiet, Lauren almost could not hear him, but she heard the hope and fear mixed together in his words. Lauren stopped what she was doing and looked at Marcus with all the love in her heart showing in her eyes. "Someone like you?" she asked, even though she knew exactly what he meant. "You know," Marcus said even more quietly, "someone with no family. Someone nobody wants. Someone who gets moved around like old furniture that nobody has room for." Lauren knelt down so she was eye level with Marcus and put her greasy hands on his small shoulders. "Let me tell you something, little man, and I want you to remember this. For the rest of your life, I grew up just like you. I moved from house to house eating dinner with strangers every night. I slept in beds that belonged to other people and wore clothes that other people bought for me. I thought nobody would ever love me or believe in me or want me to stay forever." Marcus listened with eyes that were wide and hopeful and scared all at the same time. "But I learned something important that changed my whole life," Lauren continued in a voice that was strong and sure. "Family is not just the people you are born to. Family is the people who choose to love you no matter what. And sometimes the most amazing things happen to people who need them most, because the universe knows we deserve good things too." Lauren pointed to the cars around them, gleaming under the bright lights. "Walter Morrison had no family either. He was all alone just like you and me. But he left all of this for someone who would love it the way he did. He left it for me, and now I am sharing it with you and all the other kids who come here. We are making our own family right here in this garage." "So you really think I could own a garage someday?" Marcus asked, and his voice was stronger now, like maybe he was starting to believe it might be possible. "I think you can do anything you set your mind to," Lauren said, and meant every word. "But first you have to believe in yourself the way I believe in you. You have to know that you deserve good things, and that you are worth loving, and that someone like you can achieve impossible dreams." 3 years later, Lauren stood in her garage, watching Marcus and 15 other foster kids working on various projects around the shop. Some were cleaning parts with careful attention to detail. Others were learning to use tools under the supervision of experienced mechanics. All of them had smiles on their faces and grease under their fingernails and hope in their hearts. Lauren had turned her garage into more than a business or a museum. She had created a family where kids with no homes could come and feel loved and important and valued. The car collection was now worth over $150 million, but Lauren measured her success very differently than most rich people did. She measured it by the kids who learned to believe in themselves. She measured it by the smiles on their faces when they successfully completed a project. She measured it by the thank you letters she got from kids who had graduated from the program and gone on to have good lives and careers and families of their own. Lauren kept Walter Morrison's letter framed on her office wall where she could see it every day. Sometimes when she was alone in the garage late at night, she would read it again and feel connected to the man who had made her dreams possible. She liked to think Walter was watching from wherever people go when they die, and that he was smiling at what she had done with his gift. She had kept her promise to him and loved the cars the way he wanted them to be loved. But more than that, she had created something Walter probably never imagined when he wrote that letter. She had turned his collection into hope for kids who needed it most. She had proven that broken things could be fixed, whether they were engines or hearts or dreams that seemed impossible. She had shown the world that sometimes the people who have the least to give are the ones who give the most. Lauren often thought about that day when she first opened the hidden door and found the secret room full of sleeping cars. She had been looking for a place to fix automobiles and make a living. Instead, she found a way to fix lives, including her own. She found a way to turn her painful past into a beautiful future, not just for herself, but for dozens of kids who needed someone to believe in them. The little girl who grew up in foster care had become a mother to children who needed mothering. The young woman who saved every penny had become wealthy beyond her wildest dreams. But most importantly, the mechanic who loved fixing cars had learned that the most valuable things in life could not be bought or sold or restored with tools and parts. They could only be shared with love and kindness and the belief that everyone deserves a chance to succeed. Lauren Davis had discovered more than a $100 million car collection hidden in an old garage. She had discovered her purpose in life and her calling and her reason for being. She had learned that sometimes when you follow your dreams with determination and hard work, you find something even better than what you were originally looking for. You find meaning and family and the chance to make the world a little better than it was before. Every morning when Lauren opened the garage doors and heard the sounds of kids laughing and learning and engines coming back to life, she knew she was exactly where she belonged. She was in a place where broken things got fixed and dreams came true, and people who had never been wanted before finally found where they belonged. It was a place where the past did not matter as much as the future, and where love was more valuable than money. And sometimes late at night, when the garage was quiet and peaceful, Lauren would walk among the restored cars that gleamed under the soft lights and whisper, "Thank you, Walter. Thank you for believing that the right person would find your treasure and do something beautiful with it." The cars seemed to gleam a little brighter when she said those words, as if they were happy to finally be home where they belonged, just like Lauren and just like all the kids who found their way to Morrison Classics. Sometimes the most amazing treasures are hidden in the most unlikely places, waiting for the right person to find them. And sometimes the people who need miracles the most are the ones who find them, because they know how precious miracles are, and they do not waste them. Lauren Davis found her miracle in an old abandoned garage that nobody else wanted. But the real miracle was not the money or the cars or the fame that came with the discovery. The real miracle was what she chose to do with her good fortune, and how she used it to create more miracles for other people who needed them just as much as she once did. She shared her treasure with the world, and in doing so she discovered the greatest treasure of all, which was the joy that comes from giving others the same hope and opportunity that had been given to her.